Welcome to Elevated Conversations, a space where we explore creativity, consciousness, leadership, personal evolution, and the deeper human experience behind it all. This isn't just a podcast about success, it's about what exists beneath the surface, the unseen effort, the inner transformation, the quiet moments of invention and reinvention. It's the courage to create, to lead, heal, and continue becoming, even when, and especially when, no one is watching or applauding. Here in this space, we move beyond the surface level dialogue and into deeper architecture of what it truly means to live, build, and create with intention in a rapidly changing world. And today's conversation is no different. It is one I know so many people will connect and resonate with. We're exploring the invisible work, the effort behind the artistry, the leadership, innovation, and the growth people often overlook. The discipline, the emotional labor, the years of refinement, the setbacks, the pivots, and the devotion that exists long before the visible breakthrough ever arrives. Joining me again today is someone I'm truly honored to welcome back into the space. He is an artist, a curator, an entrepreneur, and a visionary who has dedicated himself to building meaningful communities, creative ecosystems rooted in connection, culture, and human expression, just to name a few. But beyond everything else he creates professionally, he's also a thoughtful soul and a trusted friend, and someone who brings genuine light into the lives of the people that he meets around him and everywhere he goes. There's far more depth to who he is and what he contributes to the world than I could ever fit into a short introduction. And I think that's what makes it so magical about today's topic and so meaningful. So, wherever you're joining us from today, whether you're building something, navigating change, rediscovering yourself, or simply searching for a deeper alignment in your life and in your work, welcome. My name is Diana Pequeno. I'm your host of Elevated Conversations here on the Live, Love, Flow channel. Let's step into today's conversation. Hansheng Lee, thank you for being here to be a part of
Thank you
another
again for
yet.
having me.
You're welcome. I'm excited to have another elevated conversation with you. The last time you and I dove into topics, it was truly enlightening. We talked about a lot of things, and there's something I want to bring to the table today, and I knew that you would be the perfect person to dive into this with, because it's a rich conversation that you and I have also already talked about before. It hits identity, value, mastery, energy, creativity, business, leadership, and even consciousness all at the same time. And hopefully, our intention is that it will also give people permission, the people who are watching, to finally articulate the exhaustion and the devotion behind what looks easy from the outside. Our topic today is the invisible work and the unseen value behind what goes into that work. I cannot wait to talk about this because we're talking about invisible architecture, the pathway that we move through when we are creating art or work, not just for ourselves but for clients. And I'm just going to open up the conversation to you and allow you to share your thoughts on what this means for you.
Oh, this is such a it's an iceberg, really. And in actuality, it is an iceberg. It's the things that we don't see, that we don't share, that is oftentimes not posted to social media or even posted anywhere else except for our living memories of how many hours we spent working, how many times we spent practicing, how many pages we've sketched and ideas that we've rendered, even though it's not ultimately the final product, but it's just getting us one step closer. It's this amalgamation of years of practice, school, knowledge, and then using it, and then piecing together these very intricate little puzzle pieces because every client's different, every project is different, and and finding a good middle ground of this is what this is what you've asked for, this is what I've brought to the table to bring it to another level, and also meet expectation, but also requirements, parameters, and then all the work that goes into that. Um, I mean, I'm sure I have plenty of sketchbooks laying around that are just pages and pages, and if not a whole entire book of just the uh, same thing,
Mm, mhm,
in different iterations. But there's such there is a myth that value has to be a visible thing, but in the arts, it's a little bit hidden. It's not something that's visible. It's not something we advertise either. We kind of come from a place of, okay, maybe we document a couple of pictures, but this is the final piece. And well, there you go. Um, and the love hate between social media and that is we have the capabilities to kind of showcase what we are doing and the little in betweens and moments that we remember to record, which I'm very guilty about not doing. Because once I'm working in a flow, I don't pay attention to anything else. Time kind of flies out the window, and I'm focused on what I'm focusing on. There's no, oh, I'm gonna stop and pause here. There's no, I'm going to take a second and get a picture of this because I'm not hardwired that way. I know that some people are, and that's fantastic. But more often than not, it's I do a couple of mock-up sketches, then I start on either a mock-up to send to a client, or I just go straight to the final piece and start working on that. I I I know that I genuinely lack in remembering to hit the record button. But regardless, that work is still there. Those 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours still stack and are very much a present thing in behind the final piece that we're making. And that doesn't matter if it's a painting or a, a book format or an advertisement, a poster, a piece in a magazine. There's a lot more that goes into it than just, oh, you drew a lovely illustration or
mm,
you painted a lovely picture, and it always gets compressed down, in my personal opinion at least, to where, oh, that's nice, I love that you made that, that's
mm,
beautiful.
right.
um, but then the message beneath is sometimes glazed over as well. I don't know how often you experience that with your own work as well.
Quite often. And you said something earlier that reminded me of something that the myth, the myth of the overnight success, and why people don't celebrate all those tiny moments that you just talked about. The moments of it's in the ebb that we grow before we reach our flow. In the sense that it's in the stretching, it's in the learning, the growing, the time well spent mastering the skill that we don't celebrate enough. And that's a lot of part of the invisibility that people don't see, that we don't celebrate the failing forward. Even it wasn't a mistake, it was an opportunity to learn. The experimentation, even the rejection of, oh, this wasn't good enough, or the perfectionism, I'm guilty of that, refining that nobody sees, and all of the emotional labor that goes into it while we are becoming good or better and mastering our craft. And people don't see the launch, they don't see the becoming. And social media has a really good way of making people look like, oh my gosh, overnight success.
That
It took you
veil
2 days to do that.
that veil it really is that veil of, oh, I can't do that, so it must be talent, it must be you were born with it. But I I when I was a TA teaching drawing 101, I used to say this to my students because my professor, um at the time, said the same thing to me, and it's, you're overthinking it. If you take every single line that I've drawn and connected it, I could probably circle the moon and back several times. Uh, and, you know, here I am now, and it's very true. It's taking a step back and looking at everything that we've done from a perspective of we did that. And I we live in a very fast paced culture of you get one project done, you're on to the next one. And there's little to no time for looking into and looking at yourself, your work, what you've done, what you've accomplished, what you've achieved. And we end up moving on to another one, another piece, another project, another means to an end. And that's something I've been heavily trying to focus in on this year is you made the work, take a step back, recognize it before you know, jettison off to the next project
Uh-huh.
or ride off onto the next sheet of paper or canvas. And I'm still super guilty of that. But it doesn't help that social media does a wonderful way of, giving exposure to people. But at the same time, it doesn't show everything. It doesn't show the late hours that we're up sketching in our sketchbook with like a little lamp because you just want to get it right. And I'm not even saying perfect. You just want to get it right. And I've gotten to the point where I try really hard to not perfect anything because perfection is subjective, but it has to be good enough for me to be able to put it out there proudly and say, I did that. I made that. And then walk away. That walking away though is incredibly hard sometimes. Sometimes depends on the piece.
Mm. Yep, I agree. I do have a high standard for myself, and that once it's done, it's kind of like, okay, got that done. Now move on to the next. And I don't allow myself, and I should practice more. I have to remind myself to allow myself to admire it, right? Because it took some time. I mean, other than the fact that people might say, "Oh, this is going to take you 5 minutes." Let's talk about that.
Oh,
This is only going to take you 5 minutes. Can you do this for me? Oh my! Or they're like, "Oh, that only took you five
no,
minutes." I well,
it, but it didn't. It
it didn't.
it didn't take us 5 minutes. It took us undergrad, some of us grad schools, and years of practice and repetition and dedication and discipline and the will to continue on in mastering our crafts to get to, oh, I can probably draw this landscape layout in 5 minutes, or I could probably sketch out this in 5 minutes. Um, I mean, and depending on how crude of a painting you want, I could probably paint something in 5 minutes. That
Mm,
doesn't make it good, but you give the same 5 minutes to someone who has never scaped uh, a yard or painted a painting with all new materials, and then you see this deer in the headlights look of, oh, I can't do that. Well, you could,
mm.
but your 5 minutes and my 5 minutes aren't the same 5 minutes. Uh, my 5 minutes is based on 17 years in an industry and longer than that painting. It's not going to be the same. And also, the whole you can't make the same thing everyone else makes, even a copy. Um, no matter how no matter how much we try, copying isn't going to ever quite come out the same as the original, right?
Yeah, I I wanted to bring that to the conversation because not just clients, but people in general often confuse speed with simplicity, right? but the mastery truly shortens execution time. And there has to be some value in the having the discernment, the pattern recognition, the experience, and why expertise looks effortless. And going back to that, oh, it only took you 5 minutes. Well, it's because it took that piece 5 minutes, but the work behind the scenes took several years, several hours in order for me to gain that expertise to be able to deliver it now in 5 minutes. Because 15 years ago, I couldn't have done that in 5 minutes. I can now because of the practice. And I think that there is just that fine line that somebody said to me, you're not paying for the 5 minutes, you're paying for the 15 years it took to make those 5 minutes possible. And I thought that was so true. And I believe that this is why conscious creators struggle with charging and they get burnout from underpricing, and why people often believe that fast work is, or if they should recognize that fast work is premium work. If you want it fast, and we talked about this before, you want it fast and you want it cheap, it's not going to be good. You want it good and you want a premium work, it's going to cost you premium price. And we shouldn't have to trade off our emotional ties. There's a tension between something being gifted and something that's being compensated. And work is work, whether it's tangible or it's non-tangible. People are, it's what they place value on. They'll pay high dollar for, I said this earlier, they pay high dollar for a six-star restaurant for a piece of steak. And because they get to consume it, they have it, they hold it in their hands, they, the plate, the meal, the experience. But when we're offering the type of work that is, we're just going to say that it feels invisible to some people. It's not invisible, it's a transformation. It is an energetic and emotional exchange. And there's so many things that I think we're just touching the surface here. So we're going to keep going. We're touching the surface on all of the invisible that comes with it. And so the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I'll let you, I don't want to interrupt you, but the emotional invisible labor. But please share your thoughts.
I, there's a sense from client end of they were never taught how long things take, and the expectation of we got to get everything down fast and we have to get everything down done and on and going. And I could make 100 paintings in 3 weeks probably. I don't know how good they would be. I don't know how consistent they would be, but I could probably do 100 paintings in. I'm talking like small paintings,
Mhm.
not full sized or large format paintings. But no one's taught. No one teaches that things take time and things are a process, and you have to factor in everything else too, mixing of color, drying time, space, layout, format. What is this ultimately going to turn into? And it's often so glazed over for the client end, for the receiving end, because they're like, oh, well, I just want, X amount of images, or I want this image. But you wanting that image creates this, like, for me, once someone commissions me, it's okay, what is it? What is the topic? How do I want to approach this? What medium do I want to use? And then from there, it shoots down to like sizing, timing. Where is this going? What do I need to mix for this? What do I need to prep for this? Do I have enough materials to make this? And what's the turnaround time? What is the expectation? And is the expectation present? Is it just kind of oh, okay, well, I want you to I'm commissioning you to make this, just, make it whenever. And I do horribly with that kind of, I need a solid deadline personally. It sets this expectation of, okay, this is when this has to happen, uh, as long as it's realistic. And I don't think people nowadays are really attuned to and take the time to understand that my lunar new year horse. was about maybe 50 or 60 hours of work, even though it was digital. And in some cases, because it was digital, it was harder. And how many sketches I took, how many iterations, and how many gesture drawings of horses. And I full disclosure, rarely draw animals. So for me, that was like a, oh, we're buckling in and we're taking the time to really figure this out. And also make it, read like a horse that's actually running. And I hit up a couple of my friends that own horses. And I was like, do you have any action shots of you or just your horse just running? I need references. I need photos. I need to be able to nail the impact and the feeling and the image that's in my head. And this is for me wildly out of my normal range. I normally make scenery background. I love painting backgrounds and then florals and such. But animals is one of the more rarely rare subject matters for me, I should say. And then Lunar New Year came and I released it and everyone was like, oh wow, this is great, this is beautiful. And you know, you must have done this so quickly. And I'm like, in what gave you that idea? Because like I have I filled an entire sketchbook just with drawing horses, and I spent like about a week and a half, 2 weeks doing that. And that wasn't even before I even did the final piece, because the final piece that's out now is not what it was going to be, if that makes sense. And so technically I did two different pieces. And then there's the difference between working in physical medium versus digital medium, and how I translate splashes that would naturally happen, and and having to plan for the splashes that would naturally happen, and figuring that out. But it's overlooked. It's also something that most people don't talk about. So there is this veil that is kind of cast across, because if no one asks us, it's not something that we genuine, gen, mm, generally tell. And there's so much time spent in getting to know our materials. Do you have a favorite pen or pencil or tool that you draw with that, like, you know you know how it works, the ins and
Yes.
out of it, you've had it for like years and years and years, be it a brush or a brush pen, or even a specific brand of
Right.
something.
Right.
um, you know those are all little things that maybe no one would ever consider. But and I'm even guilty of not paying attention to it all the time, because I've had this brush pen for 20 years now,
Mhm.
and I just bought a new one of the same brand, same everything. And they look almost identical. I mean, you can see that the insignia is completely worn off of this one, but it's not quite the same because this is brand new. The flow rate's different. It moves at a different pace. This pen that has grown with me for 20 years, I know the ins and out of it. I know that I can just dab X amount of the tip into water and get a good fade. Whereas this is like, oh, we're just going. Like, no matter what, we're it's flowing.
All in.
Yeah, basically. And then I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna pull the old one back out for just certain things. And it's those little things. It's those little tiny details. Um, and bringing it back to the value of that, it's really hard to place value on those micro details, those things that we know that people don't. Um, it, it's probably also why artists tend to have a bunch of tools that they can't seem to let go. And I'm also guilty of this, because each one has its own personality, its own quirks, its own capabilities. And that's not something that a normal person who doesn't make art knows. That's something that we know as the inherent innate person using the tools. Putting a price on that is it's really hard. And then once you add in the final work and how much time you spent, how much materials, are you also charging for the planning part of it? And you know, between commercial business work versus a customized painting or a commission, it's not the same. And it's easy to just say, oh, well, the average price is XYZ, but the average price is that average price based to you. Who's it based towards? What does average mean? Does the person making the work also have other skills that would lend to this? Do they not have those skills? And it's a huge tug of war. It's a it's a tug of war between the final piece and then all the afterwork of the final piece. Even, how do you price those little instances where you spent hours and hours just trying to get this right in not just your head but for your client, your commission, and honoring that, which i I'm still working on. um and there also comes a point to where you are the artist. You get to pick and choose what you are making, and you get to pick and choose what you are charging, um, within reason, obviously. But yeah, it's those things that stack and stack and build, and then what seems to be these minute iotas of information all of a sudden become very apparent, and like one project can end up being almost like an encyclopedia of knowledge that you're able to like pull from the past as references. um yeah, it's a very complex uh dance, the art of finding pricing and pricing your work, but skirting you're not trying to skirt yourself or your client, and, and honoring yourself in that process. It's a lot of emotional labor,
It
for that.
it is. It is. And thank you for sharing all of that, because that was going to be one of my questions to you. But you summed it up beautifully, very beautifully. So for whoever is watching, I hope that they gain some value for it, because I myself even gained value for it. But the question was, and um, what's the emotional work that people rarely acknowledge when it comes to leadership or creativity? And you couldn't have expressed it more clearly than that. So thank you for that. And can this kind of leads me to another same same direction, but a little bit of a shift. The internal work before the external results, because you mentioned about the emotions that we go through, and something that happens to me, and I laugh about it, is that I become so passionate about my work, and I have to tell myself, okay, time to turn off the lights, time to go to sleep. You can work on that tomorrow. Otherwise, I will go and go and go and go and go. And so I go to sleep. And in my dreams, I am working. I'm working and things are happening and I'm moving. I have all these ideas. And I wake up in the morning and I come back to my desk and think, oh, wait, I did that in my dream. I didn't actually do that in real life. So now we have to put it into action. But it's the discipline that nobody claps for us. The rewiring of our beliefs, our worth, our learning boundaries, choosing consistency over dopamine, because I can become hyper fixated, hyper focused because I love what I do. But also I have to recharge. And it's the invisible work that who we had to become in order to create this type of work that nobody claps for and nobody talks about enough.
Very much so. I'm going from a beginner and a student to, oh, I graduated. Well, that's great, but it doesn't give you any real world experience.
Mm.
Now we have to build the real world experience and work with clients and people and the public and how you want to market and how you want to handle things and how you want to showcase yourself. And a lot of these things are not taught. Pricing is not taught. I had one professor who, very on in my art school journey, was just like, price things to where you're okay if it sells. And even if you love it, and but if you can price it to where it sells and you're happy with that number, that's enough. And I'm like,
Oh my.
that doesn't give me anything else on that doesn't help.
No.
Because what's worth, several $100 to me is not going to be the same for everyone else. It doesn't factor in, all the other layers of things that we've talked about. I call it spackling. It's just like putting spackle over like the random holes and like calling it a day. And that kind of stuck with me for a little bit, and then I was like, but how do I how do I add in the fact that I can also do all of these other things? How do I not sell myself short for everything that I can do versus everything I'm willing to do and what their budget is? Um, I think we've talked about this multiple times together, but you pay me $500 to get something done, but you have a sheet that's like, an ancestral scrolls length of to-dos. Um, that's not gonna happen on $500. That's not gonna happen unless you increase that with an extra zero and maybe double or triple it, because what you want is this masterpiece for super cheap, and it's gonna end up being super bad. And we have to also filter ourselves in a sense of what we're willing to take on and who we're willing to take on. Not every project is the same, and not every client is the same. If you're familiar working with a specific client for years and you know what their expectations are, there's rapport, there's a sense of just knowing one another, then it's a lot easier to make those decisions because they know what they're getting from you. You know what is expected from them, and it's a good conversation versus taking on new clients that don't understand. Oh, you know, doing an entire branding thing is not a 8-hour day. It is not just one and done. It is not just, oh, I filled out the sheet. Here's everything you need to know. No, that's not even the surface of what I need to know. Um, it's, yeah, it's a very interesting, I don't know. I keep going back to the word dance because it is this dance and conversation of what we're doing and then also the other party because there's another party involved. But even when I'm making art just for myself, it's, is this solely for me? Is this piece going to be in something else? Am I going to, for lack of better words, cannibalize it and piece it together with other things to create something larger? And that's, I'm that's actually very very forefront of my mind right now because I have, an entire stack of paintings behind me that I am doing something with that is, I mean, they're all studies, but I kind of don't want them to just sit as studies. I think that they could serve a purpose somewhere. But it's these things, it's these little moments, these little thoughts, these little choices that go into a final piece, no matter what the piece is. It doesn't
Mm.
matter the size, the scope, the scale. There's base knowledge that we already have.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. All of these are great, great topics, and the value I already see and feel coming from this. You said something earlier, and I wanted to tap back into that. Maybe not circle so much back around, but um, it's something that was brought to my mind. The invisible work in a leadership as a business owner or as somebody who creates art, somebody who is a craftsman, and whatever that we are dealing with, or and the scope that we're working with, and more specifically, decision fatigue when we're given an open canvas, like create anything you want, but not this, but not that, but not that. And then how we have to also navigate and balance holding the vision and keeping those clients happy, but not really understanding what their vision might be. And we're just supposed to kind of pull the rabbit out of our hat, and then managing the uncertainty, and then also protecting our team, maintaining the standards, staying balanced in the ebb and the flow. And I'm just going to say it out there: the chaos behind the scenes. This is the silent signals, the silent energy that leaders carry that people don't see, and they just think, "How soon can you get it done?" So, where would you like to start? Decision
Well,
fatigue and vision
decision fatigue.
holding. Let's go there.
Decision fatigue is a good one to start with because, I, all right, as a business owner, we already have an entire business that we need to focus on. We have to, and it's not just ourselves; it's also the people we work with, our business partners, our employees, the state of the building, the state of the business, what we have to have in mind, and things that are always underlined and resting in the back of our minds a little bit. Hi, Kaimo. And it's a it's a juggling, balancing act. I kind of equate it to like those unicyclers who like are juggling a million things and like trying to not fall and break their neck.
Right.
Um, it's hard.
It's a circus sound sometimes.
Yeah. It really can be. And kind of discerning what is my circus? What is my monkeys and my clowns and my cars and my tent versus what is not, versus what is not tolerated, not permissible, not our realm to hold. And I mean, also as a community leader, what do we allow in this space? What do we not allow in this space? What are the boundaries? How are we going to enforce that and also respect all viewpoints and the members of the space? How do we want to, you know, how do we want to navigate that? And it's not easy. I, it's it's not easy. Um, Protecting the integrity of our work solo, but also as a whole, with partners, with everything else on top, and also honoring and respecting what the client wants. It's a very complicated equational balancing act is probably the best way I can put it. Um, with with being business owners and having our own businesses and working for ourselves, we don't get the luxury that people get working for corporations where you have set days and vacation time and paid time off and then also structure and direction and values on, you know, as a whole. We have to pick those and figure that out as we're going. And sometimes it's a case by case, sometimes it's an over encompassing broad spectrum. But yeah, it's like navigating. And then you spoke on, clients wanting something but not giving you clear direction here. Here's a piece of paper. Draw. Well, what do you want me to draw? Well, anything? I'm I love having creative, liberties and creative freedom, but direction isn't the same thing, and I think that's often confused. And I think that there is a slight mismatch when that happens because, like I said, it's like being handed a map and saying, "Let's go. Where are we going? Mountains, ocean, north, south?" Like, we chasing sunsets, we chasing sunrises.
Right.
Um, but if you don't tell me what some semblance of what you want, what you're looking for, what your ultimate goal is, the emotions that you want to achieve even, I can't help put that on to anything until I have some semblance of what you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
Um, and explaining creative direction versus creative freedom is a very hard thing for people who aren't creatives because they're just like, I have this vision in my mind and it's this, but go for it. Sir, I would like something to go for. I'd like I'd like a direction to go towards. Um, and if you were to give me like, oh, I want it expressive and I want it energetic and I want this to be, I don't know, like for an energy supplement. Sure, okay, that's better. Um, I immediately things that come to mind. All right, bright colors, vibrancy, fast motion, action movements, some semblance of a bolder stance,
Yes.
um, and not just go.
This is good stuff, because we are highlighting and talking about the challenges that we have both experienced, and I think that a lot of creatives also experience. But can we just for a moment, the people who are also saying, yeah, yes, yes, this is the challenge I have, let's dive into some possible solutions because you and I are both action takers and solution makers. There is always a problem, and I recognize there's always a problem, but you have a beautiful way of always diving deep and always sharing ideas with me on how I can approach this differently to close the gap, to create that communication without it being like, dude, do you even know what you want? I would never say that to a client, but in the
Well,
back of my mind, we're all thinking that,
we
oh
say it
my
in a nicer
gosh,
way.
can we, how do we approach it so we can, I guess what I'm diving towards is the protocols, the boundaries. What questions can we open up and ask our clients to help us get a better understanding without feeling like we're attacking them and just, this goes back to the decision fatigue. We can't make decisions for everybody. And actually have a client more recently that I shifted my conversation and the questions that were asked to me, I put the questions back on them and kind of gave them a little bit of homework because I'm not able to do my job if I don't have clarity on what your end game vision is and the idea of, well, I know what I like when I see it. I'm not in a space, I don't have
Hmm.
the time to just create a whole bunch of artwork and be like, do you like this one? Do you like that one? Do you like
And
that
it's
one?
not fair to us.
No, it's not fair. It's not fair. And it's protecting your team energy, is protecting your own energy, whether you're building a community or you're leading a team in your company, maintaining the standards. These are protocols, and you does something fantastic that you're like, oh, the invisible work. I have to go back and fine tune. So when this happens again, not just to myself, but anybody on my team, they know how to act accordingly to keep the composure and to keep the focus and for it not to become an emotional argument. Because sometimes it can become an emotional argument with a client that's also passionate about their vision, their dream, their project, and we're just trying to meet them halfway.
Well, and they're trusting us to, bring their vision into reality. They have to also understand and respect that we can't do that without the clarity. Um, Telling me what I'll know when I see it doesn't give me any idea of what you're seeing. It doesn't clear up anything on your end on, oh, I don't like this color. Well, did was that specified anywhere?
Mm,
Did we have a plan to go? And I mean, over the course of, time and years, tightening those SOPs bringing those margins a little closer so that, it's not this huge question of figuring out, what do you need? What do you want? What is a non-negotiable, and what can we fix? What can we wiggle? What can we kind of change? Are you open to this perspective? But that all adds that emotional labor down. It all adds this emotional and heavy invisible toll that it takes on us. But bringing something from, concept to final piece, there's a gap, buddy. There's a gap, and I try to do, some set preliminaries without burning myself out, unless it's for my own personal work. But for client work, it's a little bit simpler to just be direct and ask. I know that you said I have creative freedom and creative liberties, and that's fantastic. I really appreciate that. Can you give me a direction on where I'm going? Can you tell me what you're trying to go for, what you're trying to achieve and accomplish? And if not, how can we figure out a way to get us both to the same page so that when in your vision it's neons and purple to something more subtle greens and slightly muted tones. It's a very difficult fence to straddle, working with clients versus being in a community versus, working on your own art and your own pieces. um I mean, I'll fully admit that I argue with myself about things all the time. But that's not the same thing as arguing with a client or someone in your community. A community is a container. It is for a specific purpose, whether that's to be a community, to have this sense of unity and a hub and a function. Um,
A
and then,
support system, so
yeah,
important.
and it's it's super needed. Business owners oftentimes end up in this little hub of their own self, uh,
Mhm.
living within their own mind almost, and it's like an echo chamber. We don't get the perspective, um, that is necessary and oftentimes really helpful. I'm very fortunate that, we talk and we are able to bounce ideas and play off one another, and also, blow off some steam sometimes, and just live in what is reality and what's going on. Um, and not everyone gets that, and especially people that don't have a community space to express, you know, concerns, but also share their wins. And it's nice to, it's nice, but it's also really necessary. Um, at least I find, not just living in my own head all the time and, okay, well, I'm done with this. I'll move on. And then someone else will be like, wait, hold on, but you did this. And it's this, it's great. And celebrate it. And someone else coming into a community space who is less who is newer and doesn't understand the culture might push and poke a couple of things before they finally settle down and understand that, oh, oh, oh.
Mm.
And even with clients, sometimes you have to say, there is a protocol, there is a way to do things correctly, and a standard of things. And standard of things brings up standard operating procedures, which, I mean, it is corporate lingo, it is business lingo, but it's something that we all should have in case, someone thinks that, oh, well, it's just one more thing to tack on. You're already doing this. Yeah,
Right.
that's great. And that's kind of true. But this one more thing I'm tacking on also comes with a price tag. It also comes with extra work. It also comes with, I need to be able to incorporate this into the whole and not make it feel disjointed and have it feel, congruent and continual and linear with everything else that's been working on. And yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And go ahead.
Oh, it's also very important that I've learned because it helps me to stay grounded and keep my emotions out of it when I am so passionate and emotionally attached to everything that I put out there. Even though I am working for a client with a client, I have emotional attachment to my work. I want it to be good. And there can be an emotional, energetic disruption in my heart because maybe I want to do great work for them. I want to deliver their vision the best way. I don't want to argue with them, but I do still also have to have some type of boundary. And rather than lose sleep over it, and oh, I'm contemplating the conversation. Are they going to get upset if I tell them that I'm going to have to charge them more? And then I start to feel badly. But if there is a protocol put in place, I follow the protocol and I remove my emotions out of the project. And then I get to address it in a professional manner. And the conversation becomes more clear, not just for them, but for me. And then we stay focused on the vision and the project and not, am I going to say something to upset them? This is how we keep going and stay in the flow and the rhythm of it. And with that, excuse me, I think that this is leads to my next question or topic is the sacred side of the craft. This is where the conversation gives soul. We have our soul is in it. Art as devotion, creation as energy transmission, the frequency behind the work, intention versus the production, and why it makes so many of us creators feel alive when we are creating this, and where other people, clients were like, "Oh, this is great work, loved it," but we put our whole life and body and love and spirit, and then especially if it's if it's on a Hollywood billboard, or if it's in a magazine, or if it's hanging art in somebody's room and it makes a difference and it makes somebody else feel something, our heart and soul was poured into that. And I think that's a beautiful bridge. That sometimes what people are responding to isn't the design, it's not the words or the strategy. Even it's the embedded energy that we put into the work, and that goes back to the invisible and the unseen parts of artistic creation. And then I have no words now, but
Oh,
that.
it's putting ourselves into our work. It's a little piece of ourselves, even if it's client work. There's a little piece of me in this, and I don't want to self-sacrifice any part of that would go against what I believe in to achieve it. And I also want to honor and do my best to bring your vision to life. Um, but on resonance of personally created artwork that we have, when someone resonates with something that you make, it's a great feeling, and it's kind of you know, your soul recognizes mine. It speaks. It's a conversation between the two. And I love those moments. And oftentimes, I mean, especially with, mass produced commercialized art that you can find in like any Marshall's, Target, whatever you want to go to. There's something very sterile about it oftentimes. Finding a piece of art that is one of a kind that you will never find anywhere else isn't the same thing as, oh, this painting is ruined. I can just go pick another one up or order another one. It's not.
Hmm.
It's not. It's irreplaceable in a sense. Well, not in a sense. It is irreplaceable, but it's not going to. It will have more meaning and hold more meaning, value, and impact to you than than the commercialized. pieces out there. We live in a very fast-paced society, um, one that often doesn't think about or look into the depths of meaning to art, to life, to pieces, to things that we create. Um, and so giving someone that sense of feeling seen and understood is so important, I believe. And it's all, I mean, the tagline that often comes to my mind when I think of ACI or myself is when words fall short, art bridges the silence. Be- and it doesn't even limit itself to physical, visual arts. Music does that, food does that. Language, I mean, technically is spoken, but language is also read, it's also spoken, it's also written. All facets of art do that.
Universal language. I absolutely agree.
But it's in finding those tiny moments, those tiny spaces where the client gets the work and they open it and they see it for the first time and they're like, this is what I was missing. This is me. This is mine. This is for me. This was made for me. Even if it wasn't a commission. And I mean, I don't know how many people know that I make bookmarks, but I do. And I had these two brothers commission bookmarks. One of them uses their bookmark, and the other one took the bookmark that I made and put it in their display case.
Oh my gosh, I bet. I bet. I've seen your bookmarks.
Um,
I've seen them. It's definitely not a Hallmark purchase. It's something that I would also frame. And
and
look at this,
thank
the
you.
paper, the
But
intricacy, the
if you were to
ink.
lose a bookmark that was a one of a kind handmade, it would be way more devastating than
Sure, absolutely.
oh. And I think yeah, we did talk about this the other night.
Yep.
It's not the same. There's heart, there's soul, there's a little piece of me in there that speaks to a piece of you. And I think that's something that's super important. Be it for clients, be it for commissions, be it for making your own artwork. Um, I mean, let's be semi-real here, and I pretty much make things that I would personally buy. And I know that I'm not going to please everyone out there in the world, um, but it's a little bit easier for me as an artist to show myself and all the facets that I do when I do it that way, when I create in that manner, when I choose to put myself out there versus someone saying, I need you to do this and this and this. Okay, I can do all that. Do you like, do you specifically want me to? I have business partners that can also do the same.
Mhm.
Um, and it's finding the right client that fits you, and having a filter for those who want your work versus who just want this work done, who want this pushed out and done and on to the next level and on to circling back, and getting it done and getting it, on a timeline, on assembly, and bam, there it is. Here, go. Um, and both are a part of business, a part of being an artist. Um, but how you dial in, how you dial back, how you dial around it also matters. It also contributes to decision fatigue and emotional load. And also oftentimes we are not taught to take our emotions out of business and out of our work. And yes, our emotions will always have some semblance in the work itself. But in a meeting, in a business chat, it's not it's not the same, and it shouldn't be held that way. Um, and it's not an easy thing for people to learn. Oftentimes, and I'm notorious for blowing fire in the background so I don't singe the foreground or people in front of me. Just vent it out and move on. Keep the professional setting. Um, but then you find those random community people or a random client that just keep pushing a button, and then it's
Mhm.
like, all right, this is where this boundary is. This is how this is going to work as if you want to continue working together. This is in place for you, but also for me. And this is where we have to meet. This is not a negotiation. Um, and I won't self sacrifice my voice, my values, and my beliefs just to placate you and essentially, for lack of better words, kind of treat you like a child. We are all adults. We are all working. We all have goals. In order for me to get you to your goal, you are coming to me for my advice, for my abilities, for my talents, for my skills, and for things that I have spent years mastering, practicing, working on, working towards, and growing from. You have to respect that to some level. If you're choosing to, I would assume you already do, but that's not something that just ebbs and flows like the tide. That is something that is consistent, that is always going to be there. Um, and and the other part of that is sometimes it's knowing when to walk away.
Yes.
And that's a very hard thing, especially for new business owners, new artists, when they don't know when to say, you know, I wish you well on this project. I'm just not a good fit. And it took me years to say that and to learn how to be okay with that.
Mm.
Um,
The power of saying no, right?
yeah,
Kindly, gently.
yeah,
Um,
and
and then also, I want to address something that you brought up, because we did talk about keeping your emotions out of it. I mentioned that earlier, and then you were going back to the emotions, but there's also a beautiful space that people do seek out business owners, artists, and creators because you have so much emotion. A good, well established brand, when it's positioned right, then we can go back to strategy, marketing, and the professional scope. And it's not even corporate. This real life, when it comes to building a business versus building a brand that lasts, that becomes a conversation in family topics, it makes people feel something. So if you are somebody that leads your work with emotions and feeling, people gravitate towards that. That's that energetic pull. And so it's just like finding that balance where my energy and my heart is in it, but I also have to protect the space. And I can't over deliver if I am constantly overpouring and I'm now starting to be taken advantage of, or maybe the client doesn't even know that they're taken advantage of. They're just, there's that disconnect. And so finding that connection again, and if there's not a connection and it's a misalignment, then there has to be a safe space and integrity, respect for yourself, honoring your client the same way that, you know what, we're not aligning, we're kind of missing it. We talked about that the other day. We're just kind of missing the boat a little bit. We're here, but I think that there might be somebody else that you are better suited for that can help you build your vision. And I'm all for sharing that with my colleague, with my friend. And I think that you guys will find a common ground. And I'm happy to refer you so that you can make this dream and this vision come to life. And there's power in that, that no, it doesn't have to be no, get away from me. I never want to work with you again. It's just the integrity and the conversation. Sometimes it's a hard conversation. It's always hardest the first time you have it, but it does get easier. And
Does.
again, it doesn't have to be a blowout conversation, just to, okay, so here's where we are. Let's just be realistic. This is what you want. You have a timeline. I respect that. I think
And
that there's a different opportunity. Let's open up a new door for you so you can continue. Everybody gets to
I think
build beautifully in abundance.
oftentimes we play it up in our heads to be this huge blowout, dramatic, explosive thing, and then it doesn't have to be. And
Right.
most of the time it's really just, I think you're right. It was
Yeah.
great
I
working
had a
with
client
you,
said,
and
yeah,
yeah.
the client told me I worked it all up. I'm going to write her a letter and I'm going to say this and I'm going to say that. And she said, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I would love to meet this person. And I thought, I was having heartburn. I really wanted to work for you. I really wanted to deliver it. And you seem like I was your person. And but I'm missing a lot of things, or maybe I'm not my level of expertise or the vision. And we're just, and so when I released it, it was beautiful. My friend that I referred her to was like, thank you. Oh my gosh. I'm excited. And then my client was like, yes, all of this happened. And of course, somehow I came out looking like the hero, even though I stepped out of it.
But you were. You gave the client what they needed and didn't try to overexert yourself, overextend yourself, put more emotional and mental load on yourself. It was a triple win situation. You know, you were able to boost your friend, you were able to relieve yourself, and you were able to help the client get to what they wanted and needed
Right.
in the
And
end.
right. And also not become greedy with the money. Oh, I really
Yeah.
want this client because I really want the money. That wasn't what it's about for me. It's never what it's about for me. In the end, it is the delivery and just going back to how energy works. It's not about me collecting money in the bank. The abundance will come in some way, and if everybody's happy, then
Yeah.
it was a good turnout. So I
And when things
I
are
slept well that
aligned,
night.
yeah. Well, and when things are aligned, it's easier, it flows better, it moves better. You don't feel like you're trying to run uphill in sandals while it's pouring rain. Instead, it's, kind of just skirting downhill and like, with proper footwear and a nice subtle breeze. It the movement changes, and energy has a lot to do with that, especially with the emotions of artwork and what it can pull and convey. No matter if it's for a large brand or company versus, a private one person business, it has that ability and that power to shift and to manifest itself in ways if it's aligned. And I'm not saying that, every project I've ever done has always been on full alignment. 17 years of corporate art will tell you that is definitely not the case. Um, Sometimes gotta you just gotta get through it, but you can feel the difference between this really just worked, it just clicked, it just flowed effortlessly versus start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And it's something that takes time, and you also have to kind of cognizantly pay attention to it. Um, and being able to step back and gain some perspective on, all right, what's going on, what's not working, what can we shift, and is there something that we're missing? Do we need to just bring it and edge it just ever so closer so that
Mm,
instead of it being a bumpy ride, it's a little bit smoother, maybe not perfect, but just a little sense of forward flow and less resistance.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, this conversation is more than I expected it to be. I knew it was going to be a great conversation in itself, but so many gems, dropping gems and gold here. So I want to value your time. I appreciate your time, your energy, and the space and the conversation. So one final closing topic, and going back to our original title, The Invisible Work. Let's talk about the invisible work of reinvention, because I think that this is very aligned with evolution. When we outgrow old identities, those quiet pivots, when we're starting over from scratch, but not starting over from scratch, we're starting over with experience and evolving publicly, because social media is the name of the game in this world, evolving publicly and allowing space to let your work mature. So, my question is, what happens when your audience, my audience, only recognizes the old version of you? How do we outgrow those when we are outgrown those identities? And there's power in that, right? For just allowing ourselves just to grow into the next version of our highest self.
Oh, this is actually really good timing. I mean, I put it in the way of I put it in the way of relationships. It's like the version of me that you knew is no longer the version I am now. So we only know ghosts of each other. It's kind of like talking about exes.
Mm,
Um,
true.
it's kind of a very it's a little jarring. It's a little uncomfortable sometimes. But even people who knew me 20 years ago versus people who know me now, wow, you're the same, but you're different, and you do so much and do so many different types of art. And I still do, but I'm no longer in, high school, college. I've spent a good solid 2 decades in the industry working on things that I want to become better at, that I want to master, that I want to work towards. Um, and also, what people's brains aren't developed until 27 ish. Uh, we're allowed to experiment and change and grow and evolve and become better, different, growing into ourselves. Um, and that work is definitely not a visible thing. That growth, especially in like a professional career, is the hours that you spend, you know, scribbling, painting, playing, learning, drawing until 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the morning, um, that I'm still guilty of. But I personally don't believe in stagnancy in trying to master or perfect any form of art. There have been days, all right, rephrase. There have been nights where I'll get this recipe for an idea. I know I have, or an idea for a recipe, and I know I have all the ingredients. I know how to execute this. And I don't really care that it's 4 in the morning. I will still go downstairs and make it. Um, and of course, the next day, my husband's like, "I woke up in the middle of the night and you weren't there. What's going on?" And I was just like, "Oh, I was testing a recipe. I made this thing. It's in the fridge if you want to try some." And he's like, "You did that at 4 in the morning?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, it was there. We had the stuff. I wasn't sleepy, um, and I could. And also, I'm very fortunate that my husband's also an artist, so there's a great sense of he gets it most of the time. But that man loves and values his sleep way more than I do. Um, yeah, there's that. Or sometimes I'll have an idea and I'll run not to the 2D studio, but the 3D studio downstairs, and I'll just make and go and create, because we're not going to move further in life or farther in life if we don't. Stagnancy d- doesn't stagnancy doesn't only mean sitting in the same place of knowledge. Sometimes we can get too complacent in it and not challenge ourselves and not say, hey, there's this thing that I've been wanting to try and a technique, um, and not giving it a chance. So always learn, always play, always experiment, always allow yourself the breathing room to grow and to create at whatever time speaks to you. Um, I mean, I think the running joke for I think the running joke for since I was young has been the only time that you see sunrises is when you've stayed awake, and that is painfully true. But it's how I operate and how I move and how I function through spaces. I love the peace and the quiet of creating in the odd hours of the night. I feel most alive. And before that, especially in college and corporate, it was on someone else's time, on someone else's hours, on a very rigid plan. I don't have to do that anymore. No one should have to. Um, but for growth, you have to chase it. You have to allow yourself for it. Permission, permission for yourself, and choosing yourself, choosing not to self-sacrifice yourself, and choosing the curiosity and what could be and what can be. And I mean, you're allowed to play hooky every now and then, but there is a semblance of discipline and I mean, I treat it as ritual now for me of whatever I'm focusing on, whatever I'm trying to progress with, or if I've gotten new tools and techniques. No matter how busy the day, I spend 1 hour playing, experimenting, painting, drawing, whatever medium, and just seeing what comes out of it. And the other part is we don't always have to create to output. We don't have to create to, I mean, maybe output's not the right word. We don't have to create to sell. Sometimes creating for ourselves is deeply important, and if not just as important, um, growth. It happens in the odd hours of the night. Randomly scribbling because you couldn't sleep and you had this idea and you hopefully have a sketchbook next to your bed, where you can pop on a small light and get the idea down before it's gone and flies away. But growth is one of those things that is growth is another one of those things that people think is just bam. Oh, but look at nature. The impressive things took hundreds of years to grow.
Yes, they
Plants
did.
don't go from seed to flower to fruit in 3 days. And if they do, I would be super impressed. But there's time. There's the moments where the only thing that's looking at it is the sun or the moon, but it's still growing, even in darkness. And for the people who don't recognize me as an artist from 20 years ago to now, well, you weren't in the same garden as I was. And that's okay. But that doesn't change anything about where I am now. So,
Lovely, lovely. I just had to take a deep breath. For those of you who are watching, thank you for participating in this conversation. We both really hope that you found some enlightenment or avenue of inspiration in any of these topics. We brought this to the table because the invisible work truly does matter, because it helps shape the visible outcome. It's in those quiet repetitions, the healing, the discipline, the failures, the boundaries, the years that nobody applauds. That is the work, the invisible work, that even when no one is listening or watching, it's relevant and it should be applauded. It should be celebrated by you. And maybe mastery isn't becoming someone else. Maybe it's honoring everything it took to become yourself in spite of it, because of it. This episode has been a treasure to me, and I hope that it is also a treasure to you. I look forward to seeing you on the next Elevated Conversations. Stay tuned because Hansheng is going to come back one more time, and probably a few more times, because we dive deep into some amazing conversations. But we really felt like this topic is universal because as a conscious creator, whatever angle gives you depth, it's not about productivity. It's about you and your art and your craft. And you should honor it with full integrity and with full love. Hansheng, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Diana.
You are,
Always, always a wonderful pleasure. And I mean, what a wonderful soul and presence to be around.
thank you. So again, for those of you watching, Hansheng and I both have school communities on school. So I'm going to leave those attached in the link. Join both of our groups. Join one of them. Doesn't matter. You'll see me in his. You'll see him in mine. Artistic, ACI, Penarial Planning is the second group that he has, and I'll be sure to tag that. My group is called Creative Collective. Whether you're trying to build personal or business leadership skills, we can help you do that. If you're trying to elevate your artistic nature, and if you're trying to garden and live a prosperous life and plan for the seasons and navigate through all the ebbs and flow of life, you can always reach out to us. We're here for it. And we look forward to seeing you on the next Elevated Conversations. Be well.
Thank you so much.